Hey everyone, if you're here with us, I bet you're looking to get better at speaking English.
Definitely a popular goal.
It is, and today we're going to dive into a conversation that I found really fascinating.
Okay.
It's between a language learner, a teacher, and a native speaker.
Oh, cool. Like we get to be flies on the wall for
Exactly.
their little chat.
Yeah, and the best part is it's not like textbook rules.
Right.
You know, it's like real world advice from people who have actually been there.
Who've gone through it themselves.
Exactly. By the end of this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think you're going to see why it's okay to make mistakes and actually how those slip-ups can help you learn faster.
Love that. Yeah. It's so important to kind of reframe those mistakes into like learning opportunities.
Absolutely. So right away, the student in this conversation, they say something that I think so many of us struggle with.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the grammar, you understand the rules.
You've done the work.
Right, but then you freeze up
Oh, yeah.
in an actual conversation. Have you ever felt that way?
Yeah. All the time. I think that's like one of the biggest hurdles for people to overcome.
It
is that like theoretical knowledge versus actual application.
And that's where the teacher in this conversation comes in and talks about immersion.
Oh, yeah.
They are such a big advocate for surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Podcasts, TV shows, even switching your phone settings
Ooh, I like that one.
to English.
Yeah.
It's like constantly giving your brain a dose of the language.
Yeah, it's true. It's like you're changing your environment to support that learning.
Totally. And here's a twist that I thought was super interesting. The native speaker mentioned that their friends who learned English the fastest weren't the ones who were obsessed with being perfect.
That is so interesting.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is. It makes me think about the idea of like psychological safety. When you're not so worried about making a mistake,
Right.
you're more free to experiment and to like play with the language.
I love that play with the language.
Yeah, it should be fun.
It should be. So less pressure, more progress.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of practical tips, they actually have some great ones.
Yeah.
They suggest starting small, like maybe talking to yourself in English,
Okay.
and then trying out language exchange apps.
Which there are so many out there.
There are
Like a ton.
so many, and finding the right one is key, I think.
That's true.
Like there are some for beginners, some for more advanced learners.
Yeah, for different purposes, like if you want professional English or just casual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do your research, find one that fits your goals. Next up, they talk about a technique called shadowing. Have you heard of this?
I have. It's like where you listen to audio and you repeat it.
Yes. You're mimicking what you hear.
Yeah, you're copying their pronunciation.
Their pronunciation.
In the rhythm.
And the rhythm of how they speak.
Yeah.
I love this.
It's a good one.
I think this is such a good technique.
I do too. It's like you're training your brain to recognize those patterns and then reproduce them.
It's like watching a pro athlete
Yes.
and trying to copy their moves.
Totally. Or a musician learning a song by ear.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're kind of tapping into that part of your brain.
Yeah, that loves imitation and mimicry.
Now, the student then brings up something that I think is a really valid point. They talk about textbook English
Okay.
versus how people actually talk in everyday life.
Oh, yeah. Big difference.
Right.
Huge difference.
They specifically mention idioms,
Yes.
those expressions that don't always make sense if you translate them word for word.
Right, like raining cats and dogs.
Yes, exactly.
What does that even mean?
No one thinks animals are falling from the sky, but it just paints a picture.
It does. It's so vivid.
It does.
And it adds like personality to the way we speak.
Right.
It's not just dry and boring.
It's colorful.
It is.
Okay, so then the student sets a goal for themselves
Okay.
to practice speaking English for at least 5 minutes every day.
5 minutes. That's it.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Is that enough?
I think that's great. I think 5 minutes a day consistently is actually more powerful than like,
And hours.
yeah, than like random longer sessions.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of the 5 minutes a day.
So it's about consistency,
It's all about consistency.
not intensity.
Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah, it's like you're building that muscle memory for the language.
Little by little.
Yeah, little by little every day.
I like that a lot.
Me too.
Okay, so we're talking about 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, consistent.
And they also bring up in this conversation
Okay.
the power of listening.
Oh, absolutely.
So important.
Yeah.
They talk about how listening can actually help you internalize those native speech patterns. It's like training your ear to hear those nuances of the language.
Yeah, it's like you're absorbing it on a deeper level.
Right.
It's not just about understanding the words, but it's like the music of the language.
The rhythm, the intonation, all of that.
Exactly.
The listening is kind of like this secret weapon then. It's like you're absorbing how it's being said,
Yeah.
not just understanding what's being said.
Totally. And the cool thing is you can make listening fun.
Okay.
Like the native speaker in the conversation mentions finding content that you actually enjoy.
Okay.
So like cooking shows,
I love
a
that.
podcast about your hobbies,
Right.
even watching sports in English.
So it's like turning something you already love
Yeah.
into a learning opportunity.
Exactly. And when you're passionate about something,
Yeah.
you're way more likely to remember what you're learning.
It's true. It's like when you're interested, your
Yeah.
brain is just more engaged.
Absolutely.
So finding that sweet spot where learning meets enjoyment, I think, is key.
I agree.
Okay, so we've got listening, we've got speaking. They also talk about reading.
Oh, yeah.
For
It's
fluency.
So important.
And I think reading is such a great way to just expand your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you see grammar in action.
You see how it all works together
Yeah.
in real life context.
Yeah, like natural language.
Yes. And the great thing about reading is there's something for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So they suggest starting with simpler material,
Okay.
like graded readers,
yeah.
children's books,
Right.
maybe blog posts
Like things that are easy to digest.
that are written in clear, concise English.
Totally.
And then as you progress,
Mm-hmm.
you can challenge yourself more.
You can level up.
Yeah, with novels,
Yeah.
newspapers.
Academic articles if you're feeling brave.
Oh, yeah. So it's like a staircase.
Is.
Right? You can kind of work your way up.
Yeah, find that right level for you.
Exactly. Okay, so before we wrap up, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on
Okay.
that they talk about in this conversation, something that I know a lot of English learners worry about.
What's that?
Accents,
Oh, yeah, of course.
right? Like how to make sure that you're speaking clearly
Mm-hmm.
and being understood.
It's a common concern.
It is.
For sure.
And I love what both the teacher and the native speaker had to say about this.
Yeah.
They emphasize that having an accent is totally normal.
It's part of who you are.
It's part of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reflection of your background
Mm-hmm.
and your experiences with the language.
Exactly.
So instead of trying to erase your accent completely,
Right.
the focus should be on clarity.
Yeah, it's just making sure that people can understand you.
Right.
You're being clear.
And there are some things that you can do to work on your pronunciation,
Mm-hmm.
like that shadowing technique we talked about.
Yeah.
Listening and repeating,
Mm-hmm.
and also recording yourself speaking.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think that's so helpful.
It is. It's like you can hear yourself from a different perspective.
Exactly, and pinpoint those areas where you might want to work on.
Totally.
So much good stuff in this deep dive.
I know, right?
We've covered immersion,
Mm-hmm.
embracing those mistakes,
Yeah.
finding the right practice techniques for you.
All about that personalized approach.
If there's one thing I want you to take away from this conversation,
Okay.
is that fluency isn't about reaching some state of perfection. It's about making progress.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Feeling more comfortable expressing yourself
Yeah.
and connecting with others in English.
Beautifully said.
But before we finish up, I want to go back to something else that they said in this conversation.
Okay.
They talked about how learning a language, it's not just about, mastering all the rules and the vocabulary.
So much more than that.
It's about connecting with people,
Yeah.
experiencing new cultures through their own words.
It really is. You start to see the world in a whole new way.
It's like fluency becomes this key that unlocks new experiences and friendships and even ways of thinking.
Absolutely.
So it's bigger than just words.
Like, yeah, it's about the human connections we make
I love that.
through language.
So as you're working toward your fluency goals, try to keep that bigger picture in mind.
Yeah, don't lose sight of the why.
Right.
Like, why are you doing this?
And think about all the amazing things that open up when you can communicate confidently in English.
Yeah, all the doors that it can open.
The conversations, the relationships,
Mm.
the understanding.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is. And remember, we're all on this journey together.
We are.
So we would love to hear from you. What are some of your tips or challenges or those aha moments that you've had while learning English?
Yeah, share them in the comments.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Let's do it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep enjoying the amazing journey of learning English.
That's the best advice